Bucky Barnes becoming Captain America in the MCU would have been the biggest waste of potential since Game of Thrones Season 8. And I don't care that it happened in the comics. This is a different universe. I'm not saying that Bucky is a bad character or that his time with the Shield of the comics was a bad idea or poorly written. Just that the circumstances that led to him being Cap in the comics are different in the MCU. In preparation for this video, I made a Reddit account and asked the MCU subreddit why they think Cap should be Bucky or Bucky should be Cap or whatever. This was the biggest mistake of my entire life. If anyone who interacted with my post is watching this video, I hope you lose everything this year. But I'm just going to respond to what people said. I'm going to use one comment because it basically covered every point made by all the others and added in some of its own with examples. So that's this.
Why should Bucky not be Captain America exactly? As hypothetical that is since it's not happening. A. Bucky in the comics as Captain America was very well received, and the story was told well there. B. Bucky in the MCU wasn't that far removed from comic Bucky at the point of Endgame. It would have only needed some slight tweaks in order to make Bucky take up the shield instead. C. Bucky's character has already exhibited multiple Captain America-like qualities. He was fighting bullies in back alleys since the 1930s. He's one of the only two people we've seen on screen not to let the serum drive him nuts, insane or even multiply his worst attributes. Theman got put through 70 years of brainwashing and torture and came out of it sane and more importantly still heroic, which suggests some crazy strong willpower. Theman was a victim of Hydra yet still decided to do his best to right the wrongs caused by the Winter Soldier. Theman constantly steps up to fight for the greater good. He did it in Civil War even though everyone hated him. He did it again in Infinity War and Endgame. He forced himself onto Sam's mission to stop the Flag Smashers, and he's seemingly doing it again in Thunderbolts. Bucky himself says he'd take the shield in Fatwas. Bucky says that the world needs a new Cap, and Walker ain't gonna be it, so before Sam destroys the shield, he'll take it himself. Bucky has constantly shown to care for his allies. He shows concern for Team Cap in Civil War. He shows more concern for Sharon when she's shot than Falcon, who ignores to piss fart around with Curly. Bucky jumps in front of Falcon to take Spider-Man's kick during the terminal fight in Civil War. Bucky even gets his own Captain America moment in Fatwas where he tried to talk down Curly with a speech over the phone. Bucky already looks to be playing the Captain America role in Thunderbolts anyway, where he's presumably leading a team and giving a second chance to a bunch of down-on-their-luck assassins and government operatives to be something more and help save the day. Sounds pretty Captain America to me.
I'm going to carefully explain who Bucky is as a character, what Cap represents, and exactly why you're an idiot for disagreeing with me. And if you continue to disagree with me or leave comments that I don't like, I'm going to throw you in the well and you're going to sleep forever. But before we get into that, we need to talk about you and your lack of subscription to this channel. Listen, I know I'm probably saying some things that you disagree with, but if you keep an open mind and listen to me, you'll learn something by the end, I promise. And if you're new here, you may not know this, but by not subscribing, you're actively hurting hundreds of sweatshop workers. Like, all our real subscribers know. That's why we're all here. So take half a second out of your day and hit that subscribe button to prevent a mysterious ceiling collapse in the factory. So first we need to go over what Captain America is. See, to the people of the MCU, Cap is like the ultimate symbol of hope and liberty and the poster child of the United States. It is essential to Cap that he is viewed as all of these things because half of what his character does is serve as a counterbalance to question the government's actions when they step out of line. He is able to be fully confident in himself and his decisions because he knows at the end of the day, everything he was doing was for the right reasons, even things that were hard to do and things that people might not like. This is essential to his role as a leader. You want the guy leading the world's most powerful superhero team to have complete confidence in himself and his actions. Cap isn't a tool for the government. He's the embodiment of the truest and best of the United States, someone who represents everything the country should be, even when it fails to live up to those standards. And the perception of him as an infallible good guy is what allows people to trust him when he's questioning authority or things that may seem like good ideas on paper, like the Sokovia Accords. Cap is the moral compass of the entire universe. On the spectrum of morality, Cap always falls on the side of lawful pure good, as far away as possible from chaotic pure evil characters, you know, people like the Joker or the Red Skull or my mom. This is where he has to be, otherwise the character just doesn't work. Now we can take a look at Bucky. In the comics, Bucky started out as a kid. He was a dorky loser who followed Captain America around and even had his own silly blue and red costume. He was just Cap's sidekick who looked up to him like an idol. In the MCU, Bucky is a very different character. He's bigger, stronger, and older than Steve. He's not his sidekick. He's his best friend, his teammate, and like his peer. And while he respects Cap, he doesn't idolize him. He's always known Steve on a personal level, so doing so would be kind of weird. There is no mystique or mystery or mystification around Cap to him because he's not Captain America. It's just his childhood friend. But then he fell off a train and became a murderous assassin. Before this, he was a good soldier and a morally pure guy. Both of these characters are kind of plucked out of time only to truly re-emerge during the present day. But their character journey deviates entirely. Steve is asleep for decades. He wakes up to a new and different world. Bucky spends 80 years being woken up periodically and forced to murder innocent people for the same people he died trying to stop. And while he's unable to control himself, he is forced to watch as he ruthlessly slaughters good people for the benefit of evil, not only witnessing these tragedies, but feeling every snapped neck and pull of the trigger. So, while he may be morally innocent of these actions, the trauma has left him broken and uncertain. A big part of who Bucky is as a character is discovering who he is and what his place is in the world. So, what do you think the answer to this is? Like, where do you think he belongs? Just hold on to that because we're going to bring it up later. While we as an audience may be willing to vindicate Bucky as a character and even some of those around him, the wider universe and many of the people in it will not. This would completely change the dynamic if he ever became Cap. The guy questioning the government authority and overreach is now a former Hydra super assassin. While he may be right, he's not the world's moral compass. At least they just don't accept him as that. And this is good writing. This is what makes him an interesting character. No matter what, there will always be a part of Bucky that wonders if he really should be held accountable for what he did. But let's talk about his character arc and where it makes the most sense to go. Bucky is a good guy who's been through a lot, so naturally we want to see the guy get a win, find some redemption, and to do all this he needs to find his place in the world. But first he needs to come to terms with his past. Like I said earlier, the back half of World War II is where Steve and Bucky's character stories heavily diverge. Before that, he was as through and through a good guy as Steve, but the majority of his life has been nothing but suffering and evil. There's some wounds that leave scars even once they heal. Bucky as a character is defined by those scars the same way Cap is defined by his moral purity. But we're all on the same page. We all want to see Bucky get redeemed, so why does he need to wear the suit to do that? What is it about his redemption that requires him to become Captain America, where it just won't work without it? Well, there really isn't a reason. Bucky never idolized Cap. He never looked up to him like a symbol. He's always been his own person. Let's compare this to probably the most famous case of taking up the mantle in comic books, Dick Grayson's time as Batman. All of the reasons this is good writing are not present in the story of the MCU's Bucky. Dick Grayson was Batman's first sidekick. He owes everything he has to Batman. He was trained by Batman. He was given a home by Batman, given purpose and direction by Batman. Every aspect of his life is tied to Batman. It's even a major part of his character. He even becomes Nightwing because he wants to forge his own identity away from Batman and all the responsibilities that come with him. Discovering who he is outside of Batman is essential to the character. So giving him time as Batman and seeing what that looks like is interesting from a writing perspective because it forces him to face this reality he's always dreaded. Bucky's identity in the MCU was shaped by the Winter Soldier, not Captain America, and his character is about forging his own identity apart from it, not just taking Steve's. Bucky being his own person is very important to his character because he has never had any independence or choice in anything. He was drafted into World War II, he was forcibly injected with a super soldier serum, he was forced to become the Winter Soldier, and basically everything that he's done after being woken up and gaining his own free will has not been something he's chosen to do for himself or his own benefit. And yes, to address the comment, Bucky cares for his allies, he fights bullies, he fights for the greater good, even if people will hate him for it, he inspires people, and he's incorruptible. But so are Spider-Man and Daredevil and a lot of other heroes, even Falcon. These are common traits for heroes. You can apply this to even non-Marvel characters, like, you can say this about Batman, or Superman, or like the Flash or Green Lantern. You can apply this to any. You could probably say this about like John McClane and RoboCop. There's just these are just very borderline superhero traits. If you pick any superhero, they're gonna have most, if not all, of these qualities because that's what makes them superheroes. So let's take a minute to talk about Sam because he's the MCU's new Captain America, and we kind of have to. Sam Wilson is actually not a bad pick to take over as Cap on paper. I don't think the MCU has done a great job with showing people why he is. And at the time of writing this, Cap 4 is not out yet. So who knows, but based on what we've heard, it's not looking too optimistic for him. First off, Sam is literally Captain America's sidekick in the MCU. The most significant aspect of his life, the part that defines him, is that he is his sidekick. I think being the Winter Soldier of like 60 years is more significant in Bucky's story than the 4 months he spent in World War II with his friend. The legacy of Captain America was well established before Sam was ever even born. To him, Cap was an ideal and a myth before he was ever someone he knew personally. Captain America isn't just his friend, it's a larger-than-life concept, one he likely looked up to, because he's a soldier. Sam is a better fit for the kind of hero Cap needs to be. Bucky is edgy and brooding. It's what makes him cool. Sam has always just been a good soldier and a good man, and it seems like the tradition of Captain America challenging government corruption will continue in the new movie, however bad it may turn out to be. Something the people can trust in him to do because he has a spotless track record and was personally chosen by Steve Rogers. So, in the MCU, Bucky isn't Cap's sidekick. His journey is defined more by Winter Soldier than by Captain America. He's morally gray and traumatized and never idolized Cap or saw him as anything more than his friend, and he has never hinted at a desire to carry the shield of his own volition. So, why do people want him to be Cap again? Oh yeah, because the comics. Most of you stupid bastards probably never read the comics where he was Captain America. You just saw that one picture of him and thought it looked cool, or you heard from someone that he was Captain America and you just liked that idea. But I read the whole Ed Brubaker run back in high school. I even owned several of the volumes. And it works so well for all the differences I mentioned between the MCU and comics version of Bucky. Here are some more reasons it works in the comics and not the movies. Time frame. In the comics, there's not a long time between Bucky's reappearance and Steve's death. Bucky reappears in issue 15 or 16. He's freed from his brainwashing and goes on his own rogue mission to kill the guy who brainwashed him in the first place, and that story ends in issue 1. Then you get about 3 issues of tie-in comics for the Civil War book where Bucky is in one issue where he never crosses paths with Cap, and Steve dies the next issue. After this is the lead up to him becoming Cap and eventually taking the suit. This part of the story is marked by a lot of themes: self-discovery, uncertainty, and revenge. The world was still reeling from Civil War and Steve had just been murdered. Tony Stark was actually the guy who asked him to take the shield. In the comics, Bucky felt an obligation to Steve because he went through hell and back to save him, and Bucky had done nothing to pay him back. On top of that, he still wanted to make amends for his actions and begin the healing process on his own end. He thought he could do all of this by becoming Captain America, repay his debt to Steve by carrying on his legacy, atone for his sins by saving lives, and helping clear his own conscience by becoming a symbol of good. This is ultimately something he kind of viewed as a mistake, one that he made because the wounds and confusion of his time as a Winter Soldier was still very fresh. So, in Ed Brubaker's comic, he took on the mantle for 2 reasons. 1, he felt it was the only way to pay back Steve, and 2, he didn't trust anyone else to do it. Believe it or not, in the MCU, Bucky is actually past the point the comic version was when he took the shield. He's taken steps to atone, he fought side by side with the Avengers to save the entire universe and literally died. He had his mental programming completely removed, healed mentally in Wakanda, and found his own identity in White Wolf. If there was a time in the MCU for his character to become Cap, it would have been before Infinity War, but obviously that didn't end up working out. And I think that's the fundamental misunderstanding people have. Taking on the shield isn't the end of Bucky's arc, it's just the middle step. But he's already completed that part of his career in the films. Bucky's story is about learning that even when you're done with your demons, they may never be fully done with you. Instead of pretending they don't exist, accepting the good and bad of your past, and using that to become the best version of yourself. This ending honors both parts of Bucky's story, both the traumatic Winter Soldier period and the idealistic World War II era. And the reality is that doing this can never end in becoming Captain America. But that's not a bad thing. Captain America isn't the only title out there. In fact, there's one he's better suited for because of his demons in his past. One that he took on in the comics and one that theoretically could exist in the MCU. I mean, the previous holder of this title is one of the first MCU characters. Earlier I told you to hold on to your idea of where you think Bucky's place in the world is. Typically, Bucky is portrayed as a darker hero, someone willing to make difficult calls and do whatever it takes to save lives. There are plenty of lines he's willing to cross if it's for the greater good. In the 2010s, an event comic came out called Original Sin, and it's here that we're first introduced to the Man on the Wall, one man whose only job is to protect Earth by any means necessary. The Man on the Wall lives in the shadows, assassinating threats before they can do any harm, or even eliminating dangers before they ever arrive on Earth. He has eyes and ears everywhere and follows no laws or rules besides keeping Earth safe. In the comics, all the hundreds and thousands of threats that have had to be stopped by the Avengers or other heroes are just a small fraction of the ones he stopped. You might have guessed who the Man on the Wall is: Nick Fury, a character who has been in the MCU since day one, and in the comics he passed the title on to Bucky. This is the perfect place for his character to end up, taking everything he was forced to learn and experience as a Winter Soldier and using it to protect the entire planet. As Captain America, Bucky would have overcome his past and separated himself from it entirely. Instead of forging a new identity, he would just become Captain America, the title of his best friend that he never really expressed much of an interest in taking. As the Man on the Wall, Bucky has become his own person, and the reason this is different is because the Man on the Wall is a title taken on by a person. anyone can be the man on the wall. Spider-Man could be, Doctor Strange could be, Wolverine could be. Unlike Captain America, who is his own character with expectations and public presence. So here's my general thesis. Bucky is a great character, and you can have him go through this redemption arc without having him abandon everything that makes him him. The reality is that we have Sam as Cap in the MCU, so all we can do is hope that they do well with the character. They've been off to a rocky start, but here's hoping they can bring things back together. But that's all I'm going to have to say here today. If you like this video, you should subscribe. But that is all that I have to say about this today. I like making this video. I actually found a lot more interest in Winter Soldier that I didn't know I had before writing this video. Like, he's moved up pretty high on my list of like comic book characters that I really like. So that was kind of cool. If you like this video, you should like and subscribe and comment and do all of that. And you can look through my channel. I have other videos talking about movies and the MCU and video games, all sorts of stuff. But that is going to be it for this. Goodbye.